I'm John Del Rio, the Senior Sales Account Manager for Mitchell Consulting. On the line we also have Anna Maria Hada. She is the Account Manager for all existing accounts within Mitchell Consulting Group. We are proud and to present Artie Segal. She's from Core Systems, and Core Systems is globally one of the leading software solution providers for SAP Business One and with SAP Gold Partner status. Coresuite comes with innovative mobile solutions. Coresuite is a pioneer in the cloud-based on-demand business solutions. Currently, Coresuite Systems has 140 employees worldwide with over 75,000 users around the globe working with their solution in a network of over 500 partners. Artie Segal was a key founding member of Core Systems in Switzerland and then moved to New York City, not only to establish Core Systems, but to enjoy some of the nightlife that New York City has to offer, and to create the first subsidiary and market Coresuite Systems solutions in North America. Artie has been with Core Systems since 2006 and is in charge of the entire operations in North America. Has established a support center in Miami, an office in Los Angeles, and is currently one of the leading software solutions in North America with over 10,000 users. Okay, we are proud to bring her on board. Very knowledgeable. Artie, it's a great product. We support it highly. Anytime anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in. I will be monitoring the question and answer portion. And at the end of this webinar, we have a little surprise for you guys. So, Artie, if you want to take over for now, please go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the introduction, John, and for giving me the opportunity to present to your clients. First of all, can you see my screen and hear me fine?
I can. And everybody else is muted. Yes, so I can see your screen. It looks great.
But you can. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so let's get started. Welcome to the presentation, of course. Thank you for taking the time to join. We're going to start with just a few slides and then go into the actual product demo. I want to keep the slides as short as possible. This is myself. I'm Artie Segal. This is the General Manager of Core Systems USA. Based out of New York, I manage the entire subsidiary for North America. I'm going to start with some slides about Core Systems, the actual background of the company. The company was founded back in 2006. As John mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of the company from back in Switzerland. This is actually our headquarters back there, and then moved to New York to build our subsidiary for North America. Unfortunately, our office in New York is not as big as in Switzerland that you can see here in the image. Important for you to know is that we're not an SAP reseller, nor do we sell directly to end customers. We really get brought in scenarios as these where, you know, your SAP partner as Mitchell Consulting brings us in and says, hey, you have a solution which is of value to our customers. So our focus is really to bring solutions which enhance your B1 experience to the next level. Right, that's really what we work on, and Mitchell Consulting is one of our key strategic partners in this area where we work with them and try to essentially enhance customer satisfaction when working with SAP Business One. Due to our location back in Switzerland, we also work very closely with SAP, the headquarters in Germany, so we do pilots for them, we develop prototypes for them, which is independent of our product portfolio, but of course also testimonial to the quality of our development. So we have a very strong focus on SAP as ERP system and within SAP on Business One since several years and know the needs of small and middle-sized enterprises, be those local ones or international ones. Another thing, you know, of course, a lot of you being based in the Southeast, you know, due to our European heritage, all our solutions are available in a multilingual translation, so Spanish, Portuguese, you know, French, English, and so on, because coming from Europe, that was one of the key requirements. So everything you see is available multilingual as well. We currently have, you know, 6 years ago we were 4 of us who founded the company. Now we have over 160 employees worldwide. Again, the headquarters in Switzerland, and we have the subsidiary in the US, in China, Brazil, and so on. We have over 500 partners worldwide with the network of around 4,000 experts. So really, you know, Mitchell Consulting being one of our key partners, all their consultants are certified on the Coresuite solution. So when they come and recommend a solution to you from Coresuite, they really know what they're talking about and what the added value for you is going to be because they're all certified on the solution as well. This is of course a key KPI for you. We have globally over 75,000 users across the globe who use our solution. So it's really a stable, widespread solution, which has a lot of customers running it for their daily business. That's just some facts on core systems. Now to Coresuite, the actual product portfolio. Here a little bit of a basis. So the basis is SAP Business One. Then we have this horizontal package called the Coresuite Country Package. I'm sure some of you on the call already have this solution, as Michelle is promoting it heavily in their standard implementation. So the Country Package is really, a horizontal solution covering the standard gaps, I guess, which SAP has as a software. So, things like, document delivery, scheduled delivery of reports, customizing your user interface in SAP, hiding fields, adding buttons, making fields mandatory, data validation, reporting, things like that. So it's really a package which is not industry specific, but kind of is useful for every SAP implementation. If that's something which interests you, of course, reach out to John or Anna, and we can schedule a demo on that solution, which is one of our most popular solutions selling globally. And then we have a mobility solution as well, which is from the sales side. So create an order on the iPad, on the iPhone, capture a signature, or from the services side, really dispatch a ticket to your technicians who are out in the field, have them on the mobile device, track their time, track their expenses, track their material, and then synchronize back into SAP for billing. So this is our mobility part. Again, here, if that's something which interests you, then feel free to reach out to John or Anna and they can schedule a demo. The focus of our session today is data analysis and reporting, so the Coresuite Cube. This is currently our fastest growing product in North America, particularly because it really solves a current need when working with SAP Business One, and we're getting a lot of traction for this solution. So the Coresuite Cube is an Excel-based solution. This is the interface. That means you can reuse all your existing Excel skills when using the tool. You don't need to learn a new tool and acquire new skills. It's really about just reapplying your skills of Excel and essentially being able to go in and, working with pivot tables, which all of you who do reporting are already doing extensively. The main functionality is really consolidation. So if you have multiple SAP databases or companies, you can very easily consolidate with the Coresuite Cube financial data. This is one of the key aspects, essentially, of the cube. If you have multiple companies, if it's just for one company, the main thing is really drill down behind transactions to see what individual transactions make a number come to be, and actual real slicing and dicing of data according to your preference, according to your need, without having to have a SQL custom report be written for you, which will take several days, which takes a lot of effort and is very cost intense, and then in the end is still just a static report which you can't modify. So really the slicing and dicing is a key aspect of the Coresuite Cube, because it empowers you to analyze data with no technical knowledge. So as mentioned, it's essentially analysis of SAP data in Excel in a pivot table. So it's really your existing SAP skills. The idea is really complex analysis within seconds that you can customize reports with simple drag and drop and don't require any technical knowledge like SQL. So for me, like personally, I use the Cube now as well for my subsidiary, right? And it has just empowered me to do analysis which I couldn't do at all before, because I would always need someone technical to write a report for me. I would have to give them the query, then they would provide me a draft. I still wouldn't be happy. They would have to revisit it. So the whole process takes a really long time, versus here just slicing and dicing and filtering data according to my needs. There's no additional software needed besides the Cube license, because the solution is based on Microsoft Analysis Services. Most of you are probably running on SQL Server, so you already have analysis services. Maybe it still needs to be configured, but it's essentially there. And you can also then, once you have your reports established, you can subscribe to the analyzed reports. You can send them scheduled and automatically to a distribution list and stuff like that. So it's really also about scheduled and automatic report delivery, and of course all the reports are web enabled as well. Another key aspect is that the access is independent of SAP. That means through that is based on Excel and analysis services. You can also launch the Cube directly from Excel. So I don't need to first go into SAP and launch the Cube. I can do it directly from there. This is of course of key interest to you. The licensing is per database, so you have unlimited amount of users. So once after the session, when you get a quote from Michelle, you'll see that the price is definitely way lower than you expected because it's per database and it has unlimited amount of users who can access it. You can also extend the cube for mobile access to the cube. So there's an app which allows you to essentially connect to SQL Server, Microsoft Analysis Services, and view your existing cubes, but also create cubes directly on the mobile device. Of course, this is not something which probably every user needs to do, but maybe your CEO, maybe your VP of Sales needs to have access to these dashboards and cubes directly on the go, so you have this option. Then, as mentioned, consolidated financial reporting, that's definitely a key aspect. If you have multiple companies, it's something which has been really hard to achieve out of the box with other solutions. So this is feedback we're getting, which is really a big competitive advantage. The cubes include by default up to 10 user-defined fields. So by default, when you install the cube, you can select 10 user-defined fields from your SAP system to be included in the cube. And if anything goes above these 10 user-defined fields, or you have external tables you want to integrate, or UDTs or things like that, then we also have enterprise cubes, which are more configured to your specific needs, and then also have a variable price point, obviously depending on the amount of data which needs to be integrated. So we have the standard cubes, and then we have the enterprise cube as an option for you if you have really specific needs. But I'd say in 90% of the cases the standard cube is enough, and the 10 UDFs are enough to get what you need it to be. And then another feedback which has been really admired by customers and partners is the minimal setup and training efforts. I mean, training efforts are hardly any there because it's based on standard Excel, and you can just leverage your existing Excel knowledge as well as your existing pivot table knowledge, and the setup is very basic. As far as your system requirements are fulfilled in terms of Microsoft Analysis Services, everything is fine, and you can just run a wizard and set up the tool, which for a business intelligence tool is really remarkable. Then another key thing is, I mentioned to you that there are unlimited amount of users who can access the cube, right? So essentially you want to also make sure that you have dimension security. That means, let's say in this case Cora goes into the cube and is doing a sales analysis, that she really only can evaluate her opportunities and her quotes and her data, and not, her friend Werner's data, for instance, right? So that's key. So you can say, okay, a user can only view the documents where they're the owner, right? So you have this authorization kind of a thing via dimension security with the Microsoft Analysis Services as well. And then, as I said, mobile access is kind of crucial. You can go in here, you can create your own dashboards, you can view existing dashboards, just connect to SQL Server. This is, again, it's an added value, no additional cost, and, if your executives on the road need access to this data, they can essentially go in and see all this information right here. Let's go to the next one. Now, this ROI slide is kind of crucial. Essentially, the idea is that already when you create 2 custom SQL reports, which all of you probably have or will need at some point, you've already covered the license cost of the cube. So the cost of creating 2 custom SQL reports, and we're assuming the very simple SQL reports, is already a justification to get the cube, where you can create unlimited amount of licenses, variations of your report. So from a financial ROI, that's really the basic idea, that versus creating SQL reports which are static, which take a lot of time and which are hard to maintain, right? And again, that's just one static report. You can't vary it. Already by creating 2 of those, you're covering the cost of the cube. So think about it. There's really a big ROI there from a financial perspective. But the big part from especially the finance and sales people is the time saving they have. That it takes them so long.
Artie?
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Artie. I have a question that one of our guests has a question. Can you create multiple cubes?
Yes, you can create as many templates as you want. Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. You can continue.
No, sure. No, sure. You can create as many variations as you want. We provide you some sample cubes. You'll be seeing that in the demo. And then you can create as many variations as you want. Absolutely. which is exactly actually underlining the ROI, right? It's not just a static, this is one report and this is how it is, but I can create any variation and slice and dice the data as I want. So one is the financial thing, right, versus creating individual custom reports to having the cube to create your own reports, and then the time saving, of course, in terms of you're way faster, you're way more flexible, and you can get things done much faster. And the dynamic aspect is of course key. For me it has been crucial because I personally again was always dependent on the reports which were there in my company out of the box, but I could never do analysis. Okay, I want to filter by territory, I want to filter by product, I want to change the dimensions, I want to see the countries, things like that, which I can now do without always having to put a load on my internal IT. So that's already that with the slides. I just wanted to give you some background information. Now we're going to go into the actual live demo of the product until now. And then, as John mentioned at the end, we're also going to have a Q&A. We have a little surprise for you as a thank you for attending the webinar, and we'll have a Q&A there as well. So we'll go into the cube right here. So when you install, one thing which is important for me that you understand, my demo system you're seeing is not pre-configured with 20 hours of consulting. So what I'm showing you with the cube is really what you get out of the box as a customer when you install the solution. So there's nothing there, only of course instead of seeing my demo data you'll see your data, but otherwise everything will be exactly the same. So important, again, the purpose of the cube is really easy and fast analysis of SAP data in Excel. Again, why Excel? Because everybody knows Excel, and the idea is that you can create dynamic reports, as many reports, cubes, as you need with drag and drop of dimensions, and manipulate data in a pivot table. So if I go in here, you can essentially see that we have two main cubes. We have the sales AR, which comes with the purchasing cube, AP, essentially, right here. If I go into the sales area, you can see here that there's some predefined out-of-the-box reports based on Microsoft Analysis Services. So they're canned reports with Visual Studio knowledge in the background. They can also be viewed online. They're web-enabled in a browser, and you can send them by a subscription to a distribution list on a scheduled basis. Now these reports, revenue by customer, revenue by item, they're nice, but again they're not as exciting because they're canned reports. The exciting part is really here if you go into the Excel. Right now, essentially we have some predefined cubes for you already accessible. So open sales focuses on deliveries as well as sales orders, right? So that's what it focuses on here. Revenue focuses on the quantity of invoices and credit memos, and sales documents just includes everything essentially. So we're going to actually start with the revenue one right here, and all you do is essentially click on it, and what it does is it's going to launch in Excel and is going to allow you to start working with the data. Now again, all the stuff you're going to see is available out of the box essentially, right? So what it now does when it enables the content, it gets the data and it's going to fill in this data based on your demo system in the background. Now earlier we just would provide an empty blank Excel, right, a blank pivot table so that you could actually start with your analysis in the system, but in our case we've now started to also provide some out-of-the-box templates beforehand. So if you see here, this is already some pre-configured stuff which you will get out of the box as well. So you can see your revenue by customer group, right? So here I have my customer group, here I can see my revenue share. I can here of course filter depending on the customer group. I can say, okay, I only want to see 2010. It filters for a particular year. And you see all what this is a pre-configuration of the cube right here, right? So if I say, okay, I want to also have not only customer group but country right here, right? Then it splits it up by a country. So this is just to give you a little bit of a starting point, right? Then you have here revenue by item group. You can see your different item groups. Again, you have the visualization and you can filter right here. Revenue by sales employee, the same thing. So these are just things so that you don't just have an empty Excel like we used to have earlier, but it gives you some kind of a stimulation in terms of a pivot chart. Revenue and margin trend, I think this is really nice to see also a little bit of the complex analysis. Here you can see the different years. What you're doing is you're comparing the base price and the margin with your total revenue, right? And then you can just visualize it. Again, this is standard Excel. All what it's doing is taking the data from SAP and putting it in here. And then here you have things like top 10 customers, top 10 countries, top 10 items, and things like that, essentially your sales employees. Now, but the real, so these are, templates you get out of the box, but the real exciting part, according to me, is really this blank Excel. And you can see it's a blank pivot table, and you can see your dimensions to the right. So this information is what comes from SAP into the pivot table. And now I'll show you how with drag and drop you can create your own reports in Excel with B1 data. So the first thing you do is you decide what data you actually want to analyze. You want to analyze the cost, discount, margins, quantities, or just your total revenue. And here we support foreign currency, local currency, and system currency, right? That's what SAP is based on. So if you take, okay, you see local currency and you're like, oh, this is a really big number. I don't really know what this consists of, right? So I say, okay, I want to go down. I'm now going to just show you the basis, and then we'll go through it step by step. And you say, I want to add the items, right? Then essentially what it shows me is my revenue by item group. I can see HP printers, I made about 900,000 right here, right? Then I can drill down and I can see what particular item gave me how much revenue. So the LaserJet 4 gave me about 500,000 revenue. But again, here I don't really have a time dimension, so what I can do here to see over how much time did I make this revenue, I just add the time dimension, and you see it really quickly loads data of the past 7 years for me right here. You would have exactly the same thing. The data would just be yours, your items and your revenue versus mine, right? So you can go in here. I can also go in here and set date filters. I can see I want to see a particular quarter, or I want to see a particular period, or I want to go in and see a particular year and things like that. Or I can simply say, I just want to see a particular year. So all I do is grab the year, put it into the filter, and I go in here and I say, okay, I only want to see 2010, for instance, right? So it shows me the data only of 2010, and now this is the nice part. Let's say I have a management meeting and I want to visualize this data. You just go into Analyze, Standard Excel, go into Pivot Chart, and you can visualize the data right here, and you're ready for your management meeting, right? So essentially the basic idea is really you can leverage your existing SAP knowledge to slice and dice data, Excel knowledge to slice and dice data according to your needs, right? I can visualize data. If I no more want this filter, I just go out and the filter is out, right? Now let's go through it a little step by step. So again, I can analyze costs, I can look at margins, I can say, okay, I also want to see quantity. So now I don't only have the local currency, my revenue in here, but I also have my quantity in here, right, for every year of how much of these items did I sell. You can also always include information of the previous year or year to date, right? That's always information you can include. Then you can include account information, for instance, if you want to also see what account does this revenue go into, right? So I can drill down and I can see, okay, it goes into income, it goes into sales revenue. I can add the countries, for instance, right? Now let's say I don't want to have the country, I don't want to first have item, then account, then country. I can just go here and slice and dice and say, okay, I want to first have the countries. Then it sorts it right, and this is what I mean with slice and dice, right? You'll never do this with the SQL report. So here I can see all my revenue for the country, and if I go down, I can see it for the US, right? So I can see Canada and I can see US. Then I can go further down and I can say, okay, I also want to add my customers, right? I want to see which customer made how much revenue. So here I can see my customer groups. I can drill down, let's say production, SG Electronics, and it shows me exactly, even the contact person, how much revenue I made. Now again here, let's say I want to have country and then I want to have customers. So I put it right here. I can see Canada, right? SG Electronics, what particular product, how much revenue, what account, right? So I can drill down and I can set it up in any way I want. You can also add addresses in the analysis, as I said, user-defined fields as well. The time dimension we've looked at, right? The calendar dimension. You may have different scenarios. You want to filter by a quarter. You want to filter by a particular year. If you have distribution lists implemented in SAP, you can implement those as well in the cube. Document owner, then the filters are very important, right? You maybe want to filter by a particular currency or by a particular document status, right? So if I pull in document status, I can see, okay, I want to see all closed documents or all open documents, right? So let's say I want to only see the open documents, then it'll filter my information to only show the open documents. Or I want to also filter in, and I don't want to see invoices and credit memos, but I only want to see invoices, right? The idea is that you can really also filter the document according to essentially your need. And again, if you don't want the filter, then you just take it out, right? Then you just drag and drop. So again, you can slice and dice according to your need. You can go down, then here you have information on projects, on sales employees, territories, if you want to add warehouses and things like that. So I mean, you understand the concept. We provide you all the data from SAP, all the essential data from SAP. You can include even your 10 user-defined fields and create as many variations of this cube which you need. And of course, you don't need to create this cube, completely from scratch every time. So if we go in here, all what you need to do is, we're now going to go and save it on the desktop. We go on the desktop here. We call it Mitchell right here. And now we're going to close this cube. And essentially, you see you have now this cube right here, right? And when you open, essentially, it's going to go in and it's going to open exactly, that Excel which you had. And all what you then need to do is refresh the data, right? So essentially, you don't have to set it up every time. You can just save the Excel, you can launch it, and it reloads the data right there. And then you can say, okay, this data should be refreshed every 60 seconds. Or in my case, that's why it takes longer to load. I have it set up. If I go in data and properties, I say it should refresh the data when opening the file. That's why it takes longer to load. But I can set an interval, or essentially what you can also do is just manually refresh the data when you log in. So this is exactly what I mean. Let's say you have your management meeting every Tuesday morning. You can say every Monday night, this report gets sent out to my management team so everyone has the current numbers, right? So you can do the scheduled automatic delivery of this report at the same time to your management team. Now, what if you're not working with your management team, right? What if you want to send this to your sales employees? Then, of course, you want them to see their data and to be able to refresh it, but you don't want them messing around with the dimensions here. So if we go in here and let's say we filter by sales employee right here, and we, for instance, look at Jason Butler, for instance, here, right? We're just going to look at his numbers. Or let's actually go one guy who has a little more thing, Bill Levine here. Here we go. So Bill Levine has a lot of revenue. And now let's say firstly I'm curious to see, okay, this is like 110,000. This revenue, what is behind this? So with every large number, what I can do is I can just double click and it takes me to the detailed transactions of what exact data is behind these numbers. So you can drill down. So this is really amazing. I can get detailed information according to my interest without needing to create a report or any technical expertise via the cube with SAP-based data. So I can, of course, see the invoice behind it. I can see what was the date. I can see the revenue. I can see the warehouse behind it, the customer, the contact, right? So I can really drill down and see the actual GL account and the warehouse which is behind this number, right? So it allows me to drill down here. And now, again, I don't want Bill Levine to essentially be able to do the stuff. So again, this is standard Excel functionality. I can just go in and I can freeze the report. So I go in here and I say convert to formulas. And what this essentially does is it freezes the report. So I lose the ability to modify the dimensions, but I'm still connected to the cube. So you see the dimensions are gone. But if I go in here, I'm still directly connected to the cube essentially and can, work on the formulas you can see right here. So this guy can still go in and refresh the data, but he's no more able to modify it. So what I essentially can do in the back end, as a sales manager, for instance, is I can, give this report the look and feel which I want it to have, right? I can, so I can go in here and I can say, okay, I want, the view essentially to have this. This is the formula I would like to add, right, multiplied by this and things like that, right? So I can essentially freeze the report. It loses the ability to modify the dimensions, but you're still connected to the cube for the refresh. And again, you can modify the layout and look and feel and add formulas and calculations and send out to your sales team. So this would be now a report. If you have a sales meeting every Friday afternoon, on Thursday evening, you would want to send this report to all of your sales employees essentially so that they have the current data available for themselves as well. So this is essentially the basic concept of the cube behind it. Now let us just close this one right here. And so what I've now showed you is the revenue cube, again, which focuses on invoices as well as on credit memos. Then you have exactly the same thing from the perspective of open sales, where it's more orders and deliveries, and sales documents includes everything. From a purchasing side, which comes together for free, so to say, with the sales cube, you have exactly the same thing, just from a purchasing side. So you have open purchases, expenditures, and purchasing documents. So now you've seen the sales cube and how it can be accessed via SAP. Now I'll show you how to access the cube with no need for SAP at all. Just open a blank Excel so you can access SAP data without going into SAP and do data analysis really easy and fast. So we don't only cover the AP and the AR side, but also CFOs and finance people really love the tool because, again, they don't require any technical know-how for the reports and can just do drag and drop. So if I go in here and I launch a blank Excel, let's open this right here. All what you need to do is you go in here and you go on data, and then either you establish your connection directly from here, you just establish a connection to analysis services, or you go on existing connections like I have, and I can launch my P&L report directly from here essentially. So you see I access the cube with absolutely no with no connection essentially to SAP, and you see now again the same thing happens. It opens a blank Excel. To the right side I have my dimensions for the P&L cube. Again, this P&L cube I could have also launched from here, right? So from the finance side we have the balance cube and the P&L cube. The cash flow cube is a separate module that's not part of the standard cube, but this is what you get right here. So if we go in here, we can do exactly the same thing. You can define what values do you want to analyze. So you can look at the budget, right? The budget delta, local currency, again, previous year or year to date. Or you can just go in here, P&L, and you can say, okay, I want to look at the local currency. We can add the account classes. We can add the accounts. We can go in here and add also the GL accounts. I mean, this all depends how your SAP is set up, right? Then we want to add the business partners. We want to add the date. And you see, within seconds, we've set up a super complex report, which you could never do if you would have to do everything in SQL, right? And again, if you have existing Excels, all what you need to do is take each cell and direct it to the cube. So if you have existing templates, you don't need to recreate them. You just direct them to the cube and they will get refreshed as well. And then of course, if I look at this huge number, again, it takes me into all the data behind this with a simple double click. And you can go here into more details, again, distribution rules, due date. One of the key things is if you're working with different profit centers, right, who have different budget scenarios, then you can also eliminate and consolidate that over different the budget scenarios over different profit centers. And then, as I mentioned, this is very important, consolidated reporting, financial reporting. This is for the Coresuite cube specifically. If I have multiple databases like I do in my system, I can take data source right here and I can say, okay, do I want to look at the Canadian database, the US database, or New York specific, right? So let's say I want to look at the US, then it filters and it shows me only the data of the US. If I want to consolidate over all three databases, I can just do all. So this is how easy you can analyze according to different companies and consolidate financial data. I could also say I want to have the data sources in the columns, and then you see for every year it will show me the data for the US, for Canada, and for New York. Right, so this is a key aspect. If you have multiple companies, then easier consolidation than this is, reporting is going to be hard to find for B1. Then, also account segments. If you have account segments which you need to analyze, as I mentioned, if you're working with profit centers, projects, and things like that. Again, of course, the whole sequence of all this information, if you don't want account information, right, and I just want to have business partners on the top, this is exactly what I mean with slicing and dicing of data. Right, this is the powerful aspect. I can here see my business partner, I can here see the date, here I can see the database, I can see the actual project they're working on, and things like this. So the basic idea is really that I can essentially go in there and, actually analyze my SAP data easily and quickly in Excel with your existing Excel skills, because you probably spend a lot of time in Excel with no technical knowledge necessary or need to essentially build custom reports, which are then simply static, right? So from a finance side, essentially, we have here the profit and loss one, and then we have the balance one, which essentially focuses obviously on balance and delta and setting up all your stuff like that. And as I said, the cube itself, you can include up to 10 user-defined fields out of the box so that your data from your SAP system is there as well. And also with the Finance Cube, of course, you have some predefined out-of-the-box reports based on analysis services, but again, I don't know how exciting, that is in light of the actual Excel aspect of it. Another key thing is, if I have this Michelle report and you say, well, I don't want to only access this from my desktop or from my network, but I want the guys to be able to launch this cube directly from SAP, right? So I, for instance, here have a cube report menu which I've added, which is something you can easily do with Coresuite. So you can add a new menu point right here, and I say whenever my guys click on this menu point, I want my Michelle cube to launch, for instance, right? So all you need to do here, this is of course not something you need to remember, but I'm going to just show you that it's possible. So I copy as path, I copy the location where this folder is saved. I go in here into add-ons, I go into Coresuite Customize, new menu. Again, this just to show you it's possible. And then here I have the cube report. Here I'm actually giving the parent, so I'm saying where do I want this menu to show up? As I showed you before, we want it to show up here, right, in sales, and then right here we want to launch the Michelle cube right here. So what you do here is you just go in here. It's a predefined thing, and then you can just go in here and save essentially the path which we just copied of where that Excel is stored. You can go in here, you have to update this, and now essentially when I go in here and I click on cube report, it's going to open, can you see, our Michelle cube. So if you don't want this to only be sent out on a scheduled report basis, but you actually want it to be as part of your SAP system, that it can be launched directly from SAP from here, you can just add a menu point and do that as well. This is a small little goodie, but it's still, for some customers, really key that you can launch it locally as well, essentially. And then the last thing, which I think is really exciting, and then we're going to go into the Q&A and the little surprise which John announced, essentially, is that with Microsoft 2013, and again, this is not related to any additional costs or anything, this is just the benefit of essentially working with standard Excel, you obviously also have something which is called the Power View. So the Power View with Microsoft 2013 is this awesome visualization of pivot tables. So to the right side, you see your Power View field, so to say. So this is again a standard part of when you get the cube and run it with 2013. So you have these Power View fields to the right. You can there set up countries or customers or your date range, items, revenue, employees. It's exactly, this is pretty much what it is, right? So I can go in and you can set up your pivot according to this, and then you can go in and you can have a visualization of this data right here. So I can say, okay, I want to visualize this data on a map, right? I've now pre-configured it so that we don't lose too much time. But if you look at this sales dashboard, what it essentially does is here it shows you the values which you have, right, which I've already now pre-configured. And for instance, this sales dashboard, this map visualization in the design, again, I selected it to be a map. It could also be other visualizations. I can go in here and I can see, okay, this is my revenue by customer group. Right, so I can see these are my different build-to states, and I'm looking at my total revenue by customer group according to build-to state. If I see the size of the dot essentially represents the revenue amount, right? I can see this information. The color-coded part of the dot represents the customer group, so I can see, okay, here construction in this particular state is exactly what we're looking at in Pennsylvania, construction, and this is really big, right? If I hover over it, I get the data information, so I can see almost $3 million were made in Pennsylvania for construction. And then if I want to filter, and let's say I only want to see for instance, customers right here, I can filter and I can just see the data for that. If I no more want to filter and I just want to see large accounts, it'll filter and it'll show me only large accounts in New York, for instance, and I can filter by this. So it's a dynamic visualization of your data, which essentially allows you to see your stuff as a map directly as well. So I can unfilter by the title, and I can here see the different type of filters which I have. I can also here go in and I can see the different ways how you can filter the data directly from here as well, based on the information provided. Another Power Sheet where I here have more than one essentially is, here I have, for instance, my total revenue by customer group and by item group. So here I have my customer groups, here I have my item groups, here I have my revenue by sales employee, and again, this is just simple pivot table, right? And here I can see my revenue by build to state, and build to city. So this is like my second sales dashboard. You see I have multiple dashboards now on one particular sheet, and the fun part is they're all linked. So let's say I only want to see my revenue of HP printers. I go on HP printers, and you see all three adapt right away. So I can see how much did I make in construction, I can see how much did my individual sales employees make just for HP printers, and of course which build to state and which build to city made how much revenue. So I can see the revenue by item group, by customer, and I can visualize it by sales employee and build to state and build to city. If I no more want to do the grouping, I just click on the title and it goes out. So this is a big aspect as well, and I think, you know, for me again, who uses the cube personally, a huge advantage at no additional cost because this is standard Excel. So one thing also, you know, when you go with the cube, you'll always be able to profit from the new stuff which Excel and Microsoft essentially put in their thing. So to recap, you know, we looked at essentially the cubes, right? The sales and purchasing cube, which come together, the finance cube, as well as I showed you how you can add a menu to directly launch the cube. And then, of course, you know, the Power View aspect where I can visualize my cube directly from here as well. And, you know, you see, so it doesn't have to only be a map. I can also make really complex diagrams and have everything linked together itself. So we started like with a simple one where I just saw my revenue by customer group. I can hover over it and then hear more complex information here as well. So that's kind of, you know, I really believe in the cube, and I hope that this has kind of been convincing for you to see how much time you can save, you know, with regards to pricing information. That will be Michelle Consulting who will be following up with you. The idea is really to give you a powerful way to analyze SAP data easily and quickly in Excel with no technical knowledge or no need to build custom complex reports essentially. And with that, I would actually now like to hand over to, you know, John. He has a little surprise, as he mentioned, and then we're going to open up for the Q&A essentially, and, you know, Michelle will be following up with you with the announcement as well as the recording. So, John, can I hand over back to you?
Yes, you can, Artie. Artie, thank you so much, and that was, as always, excellent, an excellent presentation. I back Artie up 100% on the quality and the usability of the cube. It is just an incredible tool that can help out your business. We have several of our partners that have it installed and are utilizing it and absolutely love it. And, you know, the comment always is, I don't know how I lived without this before I had it. It really is a great, great tool. As a thank you for attending the webinar today, for the next 2 weeks, we are going to have a promotion, and it's 10% off the Coresuite Cube list price, and that offer expires on October 4th. So please, if you're thinking about it, take advantage. It's a great tool. I think for the price that it's priced at already, it has a bang for the, you know, for the buck, for the value. So with an added discount, it would just be that much more special. Artie, we did have one question that came up during the webinar. We waited till the end, and the question was, is the data in the cube refreshed real time, or does it update the cube on a particular time frame basis?
It updates it on a particular time frame basis, so you can define the interval how quickly it would update it, because it goes to a staging warehouse, and from there it essentially goes into the cube. So there's a middle step in between, but that interval can be defined. By default, it's 24 hours, but we, for instance, internally have the updates scheduled to every 2 hours, for instance. So
what's the minimum, Artie? The minimum time it can be set up to refresh, or what's the recommend? What is the minimum and what is the recommended? Because you said 2 hours there.
There's no real minimum. I mean, it has to be realistic, right? Because otherwise you're loading your system every time, like you refresh. So, I mean, for us, we have 2 hours, and we have our whole productive system running on it with 160 employees. So I would say, you know, 2 hours is definitely a good time frame. And then you can always manually still refresh if you really have, you know, a presentation coming up or whatever. But in general, 2 hours is definitely a good way to go.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Artie. If anybody else has any questions, you can type them in the question box right now or the chat. We did record this, so if any of the attendees would like to have a copy of this to be able to show to other employees or staff at your companies, we will be more than happy to get you a copy through Ketsi, our marketing coordinator. Well, Artie, no questions seem to be coming up right now. Again, thank you everyone for attending the webinar. It was again very informative. We urge you, please, if you're considering this, take advantage of it. It's a great tool. For the price, it's unbelievable. With the discount, it's even more unbelievable. Thanks again for joining the webinar. Artie, do you have anything else to say to anyone else before you leave us?
No, I mean, if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to Michelle, and, we can follow up on your specific scenario, and, yeah, definitely make use of the promotion. And, yeah, John, I guess you'll be giving me a call after?
Yes, Artie. I'll give you a call after. We can discuss, how everything went. Thank you again, Artie. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend the webinar. Hope it helped you out. If you do have any questions, please, you can reach out to me, Jay Del Rio at mitchellgroup.com, or Ketsi Puckett, Q Puckett at mitchellgroup.com, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, and we can get you in touch with Artie if that's the need. But please feel free to reach out to us, and thanks again, everyone, for joining the seminar today.
Thank you so much, John.
Okay, thank you, Artie. Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Okay.